Hey, welcome back to our study called Wisdom Delivers from Evil Men. We're looking at Proverbs 2, 12 through 15. Our study for today is all about the description of evil. So, what do we find here? Well, turn with me over to Proverbs chapter 2. And in this last section here, we're looking at, it says, verse 12, delivering you from the way of evil men, from the men of perverted speech, who forsake the paths of uprightness, to walk in the ways of darkness, who rejoice in doing evil and delight in the perverseness of evil, men whose paths are crooked and who are devious in their ways. So the Bible here is graphic. The Bible is graphic about evil. You notice that as you read through, especially the Old Testament, and even like Acts, you see that the evil is described in graphic ways, and God uses graphic words. Now the Bible is real. It's not prudish, right? It's not unnecessarily whitewashed. It's not sanitized for your approval. It speaks the truth. It's real. It goes to what is really happening. And it speaks about the evil in a way that it describes evil to disgust us. It's never to glorify. You know, there's difference. A lot of times in our entertainment that we watch, the evil is glorified. So those are the things we need to stay away from, because we don't want to glorify evil. We want to see evil for what it is, and it should disgust us. It shouldn't excite us. It shouldn't make us happy to see. It should turn us off. So especially if we're watching something on, in the media, and it's glorifying evil, then we don't want that. We want to turn that off, because it doesn't do anything for us. Instead, it makes us disgusted, and that's what the Bible does when it talks about evil and it describes evil, the ways of evil people. It's done in such a way that it's supposed to make us not want what they have. It makes us disgusted by what they do. So that's the idea of the Bible. That's why it's graphic. A lot of times it describes it, and it's also real, because this is real life, real events, real evil. And so it doesn't candy coat it so that it's fake. It's not a fake story. This is not talking about fake evil. It's real evil. And so it talks about that. Now, what do we find here? What are the descriptions here about these evil men that Proverbs 2 talks about? Well, first of all, we see that they have perverse speech. They're perverse in their speech. Now, perverseness means distorted. It's not how it's supposed to be. It's not the right way. And so it's distorted from what is right. That's really the definition of being perverse in your speech. There's a right way to speak and there's a wrong way to speak. And they have distorted what is correct, what is good, what is right. And they've changed it. They've altered it. So now it's not good and it's not right. It's evil. If you look at Matthew 12:34, Matthew 12:34 says, "You brood of vipers, how can you speak good when you are evil? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks." And this is a very good passage here, because if you look at the rest of it, he's talking about good fruit and bad fruit. And he's talking to these Pharisees, these people who are, trying to trap Jesus, trying to supposedly lead the people into the ways of God, but have actually done the opposite. And so he says, either make the tree good and its fruit good, or make the tree bad, its fruit bad, for the tree is known by its fruit. Excuse me. So what they're doing and what they're saying is betraying the fact that they're not good. They're actually evil. And so how could they, as a brood of vipers, how could they speak good things. Because out of their mouth is what is in the abundance of the heart. So the good person out of the good treasure brings forth good, and the evil person out of the evil treasure brings forth evil. And he said, I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give account for every careless word they speak. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. So we see that the mouth and the heart are connected, that if you have an evil heart, you're going to speak evil things. You're going to speak this perverted speech. And they're closely tied together. He says, for your words will be justified. You'll be justified. So if you were speaking good, you'll be justified by that. See, the tree was good and therefore produced good fruit. If you're always producing bad fruit, that means you're a bad tree. If out of your mouth always is evil, always cut downs, always perverted speech, then you know what you are. You're a bad tree. And so it makes sense. It's a very logical argument. If it's a bad tree, if it's got bad fruit, oh yeah, okay, it makes sense. So that's what it's talking about here in Proverbs 2. These people have perverted speech. Their speech is not true. They're a bad tree. From them, and you're getting bad stuff. And so words shape thoughts, and thoughts influence actions. And actions will bend one's character. We see that described in the Bible. We see that actually happening in the Bible, too, in different stories. So our words will shape our thoughts. And this is how it works. When what we speak will change our thoughts, and our thoughts shape the words, obviously, that we say, too. So there's a connection between our words and our thoughts. We're always speaking evil things. Our thoughts are always going to be evil. And if our thoughts are evil, we be speaking evil things. And that influences our actions. What we say and what we think influences the way we behave. And it influences the way others behave around us too. So it's going to change the way we are acting around other people. And then the way we act, our habits, the things that we always go back to will begin to bend our character. So if we are doing good, then our characters will grow and develop. If we are always doing bad actions, then our characters will be stunted. They will be hurting for good. And then you will end up not being where you should be. So people seek to manipulate, and people are easily manipulated. That's another idea here with the perverted speech. We see back in Proverbs chapter 1 where he talks about, sinners enticing you. Here we go. Here's the evil men trying to entice you with the perverted speech. They're taking what is right and good and then switching it and changing it. So they're talking about love and changing what love means and redefining that. That's perverted speech. It's no longer love. Then it's something that somebody created, not what God created. And so it changes everything. You no longer have the truth. Next thing we see here is that they walk in the ways of darkness. Darkness is the way of sin. You see this throughout the Bible, that darkness and the idea of sin is often talked about. Darkness. People do dark, things in the dark because they don't want their sins to be revealed. So they hide in the darkness, and they'll only do things at night where they can't get caught. Jesus in John chapter 3, when he's talking in the whole passage about John 3:16, well, if you look at John 3:19, he says, and this is the judgment. The light has come into the world, which is him, and people love the darkness rather than light because their works were evil. For everyone who does wicked things hates the light and does not come to light, lest his works should be exposed. But whoever does what is true comes to light, and so that it may be clearly seen that his works have been carried out in God. So you see the difference there. Jesus makes the difference here, but people who do evil things do them in darkness. And then when Jesus came, those who were in dark stayed in the darkness. Those who actually were following God, who were actually doing deeds that God approved of, came to Christ. They did what God had said. It was already, it didn't say they came to the light because he is in the light and he changed. It says, whoever does what is true comes to the light. Make clearly seen that his works have been carried out in God. So if you are really a Christian, if you really do love God, then you do your deeds in the light because, you love God. God is light, as John says in his first letter. And so you see the darkness here is representative of evil works of sin. And that's not the only place, obviously. There's a lot of other places where those connections are between darkness and evil and God and light. We also see that hell is called outer darkness. They'll be thrown out into the outer darkness, that is, away from God's glorious presence and into his wrathful presence. So hell is the outer darkness. It's the idea that there's no light out there at all. There's no cheering presence of God, no hope. It's just all bad. And so there's another picture of the ways of darkness is hell. Now the path of uprightness has been revealed. It's been revealed to people through the Bible, through their conscience. Romans talks about that. Paul talks about that in Romans. But these people reject both of those. They reject the Bible. They reject what their conscience is telling them. They know that God exists. They reject that. God has placed eternity in the hearts of men. They reject that. God has given them a conscience which accuses them and excuses them, and they ignore that as well. And so they rejected all the light, the good path that God has laid out before them. They could walk down the good path, but all people reject the good path unless the Spirit works on them and sets them on the good path. So their ways are darkness. They're evil. They don't want the way of path. They don't want the way of light. They don't want the way of goodness. They want the way of darkness. They also rejoice in doing evil and others doing evil as well. There's the truth of the Bible, which talks about we rejoice in what corresponds to the nature of our soul. We rejoice in what corresponds to the nature of our soul. If our soul is dark, if it's full of evil, then we'll rejoice in that because it is like us. We rejoice in the things that usually are like us, right? If we're saved, if we're following Christ, then we'll rejoice in goodness and things that are good. We'll hate those things that are bad. That's just how God created us. And when he saves us and makes that change in our hearts, then we no longer want to do the bad stuff. If we're now a good tree, we want good fruit. That's how it works out. So I want to turn with you over to Jeremiah chapter 11. Verse 14 says, "Therefore do not pray for this people, or lift up a cry or prayer on their behalf, for I will not listen. When they call to me in their time of their trouble, what right has my beloved in my house when she has done many vile deeds? Can even sacrificial flesh avert your doom? Can you then exalt?" See, we rejoice in what we want. We rejoice in things that are like us. God will not rejoice in those who are evil. See, it's the same thing for God. God does not rejoice in their evil. As he says, I'm not going to listen to them because they're doing vile things. They're doing evil things. And so I'm not going to listen to that. That's not what I want to hear. That's why he says, what right has my beloved in my house when she has done many vile deeds? I'm not going to listen to the house of Israel. These people have not listened to me, so I'm not going to listen to them. Can even sacrificial flesh, he says, can the sacrifices avert your doom? No, it won't. Can you then exalt? Can you be happy about the evil things that you're doing? No, you can't. He says that the Lord once called you a green olive tree, beautiful with good fruit, but with the roar of a great tempest, he will set fire to it, and its branches will be consumed. It's all because of the things that they have done with Baal. They switched. They love Baal rather than God. Their nature was more closely aligned to Baal than to God, because he was evil and God's not. And so they delight also in the eternal destruction of others. You go to Romans 1. It says, though they know God's righteous decree that those who practice such things deserve to die, they not only do them, but give approval to those who practice them. So it's all these people that are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, maliciousness, gossip, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, haughty, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents, foolish, faithless, heartless, ruthless. They all want to do those things and go against others that do them. So, and so they want to celebrate those who are doing those evil things. They know that the righteous decree that those who practice such things deserve to die, but they want them to die because they love their sin. They love to brag about other people's sins and their own sin. That's how evil people are. They'd rather see people die in eternal hell than to point them to what's right because they're going there. That's why I hear people say, well, I'll just celebrate with my friends and we'll have a big party in hell. And they're true, but they're honest about that. But that's not what's going to happen. But that's what they think because they approve of other people doing bad stuff. And you see that all the time nowadays. And finally, they have crooked and devious ways. They create paths for them that they cannot see their own end, which is eternal destruction. They make their own path a broad path, which ends up in destroying themselves. It's foolishness, is what the rest of the Proverbs will talk about. How silly it is. These paths that they're choosing are absurd. It doesn't make any sense. Yet that's what they do. That's what they choose. Their paths change all the time and in different situations. They'll jump on a different path as long as it suits them. As long as it suits their evil. And that's what they like. And they're clever. They're intelligent and well-schooled in the ways of crookedness. They know how to play the game. They know how to get others to do what they want. And they know how to approve of others to make themselves feel better about what they're doing. Because they know what they're doing is wrong. They know what they're doing deserves death, it says in Romans. But they are using other people to make themselves feel okay about it. It's very sad, but that's what we find the state that they're in. So, but we'll end there for today. Come back next time. We'll talk about the danger of the influence of these evil men.